911, what's your emergency?
Trainer down. Orca has the trainer. We need help now.
It was supposed to be a flawless show, an elegant dance between human and apex predator. But something went terribly wrong. What began with applause, Clara Whitmore wasn't just any trainer. She was a rising star, admired for her calm presence and deep bond with the animals. But beyond the wetsuit and spotlight, she was a daughter. That morning, she texted her mom. Shows it in under 7 minutes, everything unraveled. Ragnar, the orca she had trained for years, snapped. And the world watched. This isn't just a story of tragedy. It's about trust, captivity, and a moment that shattered illusions. Before we dive in, take a second. What would it mean to lose someone you love? Clara Whitmore didn't just fall in love with the ocean. She belonged to it. While other children played with dolls or traded baseball cards, Clara sat by the shore, sketching whales from memory, mimicking their songs with haunting accuracy. By the age of 10, she could identify dozens of species by call alone. Her parents often at 16, while her friends went to prom, Clara volunteered at a local aquarium, cleaning tanks, logging feeding schedules, asking questions that stunned even the staff scientists. She didn't want to perform. She graduated with honors in marine biology by 24, specializing in cetacean behavior. But it wasn't the degree that set her apart. It was the way she moved around orcas, not with fear, but with reverence. Other trainers used tools. Clara used eye contact. To them, she wasn't just a trainer. She was family. When Ocean World recruited her, it felt like a dream. She rose quickly, becoming one of the park's most trusted handlers. Guests remembered her by name. Children clapped when she waved. But behind the glass and grandeur, Clara fought for something more. She advocated for enrichment, rest days, deeper pools. Still, the system was larger than her compassion. That morning, as she zipped up her wetsuit, she sent a short message to her mother. "Wish me luck. Ragnar's in a mood today. I'll call after the show." Her mother texted back a heart. She never heard from her daughter again. Clara believed in trust, even when it meant risk. That belief, so beautiful and fragile, would be the very thing that led her into the water. Ocean World stood like a shimmering monument to mankind's fascination with the sea. Spanning over 60 acres of tanks, tunnels, and amphitheaters, it welcomed millions each year. To the public, it was magic. Smiling trainers, soaring whales, perfect choreography beneath sparkling lights. But Clara knew better. Behind the glass walls were shadows. Shadows shaped like silence, like pacing whales with worn teeth and scarred flanks. Animals built for open oceans, confined to artificial lagoons. Creatures born to roam 100 miles a day, reduced to swimming in slow. The Orca Spectacular was the crown jewel, an emotional, high-energy show designed to dazzle. Trainers rode on dorsal fins, kissed killer whales on the nose. Children gasped. Parents applauded. But backstage, trainers whispered. About fatigue, about frustration, about orcas that stopped responding. Clara never made a scene. That wasn't her style. But she filed quiet reports, suggested changes, asked for Ragnar to be rotated out for rest. Those requests were marked "received." She saw it building. The unnatural routines, the forced obedience, the dullness behind Ragnar's once bright eyes. But the show had to go on. The crowds demanded wonder. The management demanded consistency. And Clara, even with her soft warnings, still, she stayed. Because the whales were still there. Because someone had to care from the inside. Because part of her still believed, foolishly or bravely, but Ocean World wasn't built on quiet. It was built on illusion. And illusions, once cracked, don't break slowly. They collapse. On the day she died, the seats were full. The tank was polished. The music was cued. And the machine she had tried so long to among ocean world's orcas, one name echoed louder than the rest. Ragnar. At 11,000 pounds and nearly 23 feet long, he was both breathtaking and imposing. Captured off the coast of Iceland as a calf, Ragnar had spent over 2 decades in captivity. Tourists knew him as the star of the show, the one who leapt highest, splashed hardest, and posed perfectly for photos. Ragnar was brilliant. Trainers marveled at his memory, his adaptability, his ability to mimic not only cues, but patterns in human behavior. He didn't just react. He bore the scars of dominance fights with other males, thick ridges along his sides, bite marks from long-forgotten altercations. Over the years, he had shown signs of agitation, jaw-popping, logging, ignoring commands. None of these incidents caused injury, but they were documented. Quietly, internally. Clara was one of the few who never underestimated him. She saw the shifts in his mood, the way his swim pattern slowed, the heaviness in his eyes. In the weeks before the attack, Ragnar began floating at the surface for long stretches, unresponsive. He started slapping his tail harder, refused to outsiders. These were small quirks. To Clara, they were red flags. She voiced concerns. Again. They were noted. Again. Nothing changed. There was something ancient behind Ragnar's gaze, something wild that no tank could tame. He had spent over 20 years adapting to an artificial world. On the morning of February 17th, Ragnar circled the tank in silence. Trainers said he looked calm, but Clara knew better. It was the kind of calm she'd learned to fear. The morning of February 17th began like any other. The air was crisp, the sun reflected off the glass of the performance tank, and Ragnar moved slowly through the water like a shadow under ice. To most trainers, it looked routine, but to Clara, he didn't surface as often. His dorsal fin cut through the water with less energy, drifting more than swimming. When she tapped on the observation glass before the show, Ragnar didn't respond right away. Clara noted his sluggishness during pre-show checks. She quietly flagged it with the assistant trainer. No alarm, just concern. Ragnar had his moods, but something about this one felt. Backstage, while reviewing cues, Clara received a text from her mother. "Be safe today, sweetie. Let me know how it goes." Clara smiled and typed back, "Always. Talk after the show." At 11:46 a.m., she stepped onto the platform, wetsuit zipped, hair tied back, headset in place. Ragnar breached the water on cue, soaking the front row in a glorious arc. The crowd cheered, but beneath the surface, Ragnar hesitated. He delayed his platform slide. His tail slaps were sharper, deeper. Twice, he swam wide instead of turning. Subtle, but wrong. Clara saw it. She slowed her movements, adjusted her posture, calming, grounding, as she'd done so many times before. To the crowd, it was seamless. To the trainers watching from the edge, tension set, and in that stillness, beneath thousands of eyes, beneath rehearsed precision and practiced trust, Clara stepped into the water with a creature whose silence had become a language all its own. She trusted him. She always had. At 11:58 a.m., the show reached one of its signature moments, a close contact routine built on absolute trust. Clara stood on the submerged platform, waist deep in water, facing Ragnar head-on. She extended her right arm, signaling for a side swim, but Ragnar didn't respond. Instead, he dipped below the surface, slowly, silently, then rose again, just inches off cue. just outside range. She adjusted her body, reset the signal. Steady hand, relaxed breath. It was instinct now. And then, in a moment, the impact was immediate, violent. His jaws clamped around her arm and pulled her under with stunning force. Gasps erupted from the stands, some still thinking it was part of the show. But the staff knew. The hesitation was up. What followed was 7 minutes of chaos and horror. Trainers scrambled to deploy acoustic distractors, underwater tone generators meant to disorient the whale. Emergency protocols were triggered. Nets were tossed. He dove deep with Clara in his grasp, twisting, turning. At times he surfaced, her body briefly visible, before vanishing again into the blue. The water frothed with power. No one could enter the tank. Not yet. Protocol dictated they wait until Ragnar released her, or went still. By the time he did, it was too late. At 12:08 p.m., staff recovered her from the water. CPR began poolside. Spectators were ushered out, many stunned into silence. In less than 10 minutes, the illusion of control had crumbled. A decade of trust had dissolved in silence and foam. And Ragnar, once her partner, her friend, floated nearby. In the hours that followed, Ocean World went into silent lockdown. The amphitheater was cordoned off, shows were canceled, and Ragnar, now the center of a national tragedy, was moved to an isolated medical tank, out of sight, but far from forgotten. To the public, he became a monster. Headlines screamed, "Killer whale kills trainer. Blood in the water. Clara mauled by trusted orca." Photos of him breaching mid-performance. Ragnar didn't snap out of rage. He didn't kill to kill. Trainers who had been there said he looked blank, detached. Not frenzied, not angry. Veterinarians began immediate behavioral evaluations. Ragnar floated listlessly in his tank, avoiding eye contact, refusing to eat. Staff reported he vocalized less, and when he did, the calls were low, mournful. He wasn't aggressive now. He was silent. Investigators pulled years of internal reports. Ragnar's history of minor incidents, his long hours, his lack of social interaction, his increasing signs of agitation. Some believed it was instinct, that no matter how well trained, a killer whale is still a predator. Others called it rebellion, a psychological break caused by years of confinement, forced routines, and a world shrunk to concrete walls. And in the middle of it all was Ragnar. Not a villain, not a victim, but a mirror. A reflection of what happens when something vast, wild, and ancient is caged for too long. In death, Clara became a martyr. And within days, Ragnar's name was everywhere. Not just in news headlines, but on protest signs, petitions, hashtags. He became more than an animal. He became a symbol. To some, he was a killer. To others, a prisoner who finally broke. Outside Ocean World's gates, crowds gathered. Candles lit for Clara burned beside posters reading, "Free Ragnar," and "Shut it down." Online, the debate turned vicious. Was Ragnar a threat that should have been retired? Or a victim who acted out of trauma, not choice? His face, once sold on merchandise and billboards, was now photoshopped behind prison bars. Every frame of the attack video was dissected. Every ignored warning resurfaced. Former trainers stepped forward. Some condemned the park. Others defended Ragnar, saying he'd shown signs of psychological strain for. Meanwhile, Ragnar remained isolated. Cameras tracked his movements. Journalists speculated about his fate. Would he be euthanized? Moved? Released? But none of those options felt like answers, because deep down, everyone knew What happened to Clara wasn't just about one orca. It was about the entire illusion. For years, Ragnar had performed on cue. But beneath every perfect breach was a mind conditioned, not content. And when that mind broke, so did the facade. Clara had trusted Ragnar because she saw him not as a showpiece, but as a soul. And maybe that day, he looked back and showed her the truth of what he had become. Not a partner. In the weeks after Clara's death, the surface of the tank at Ocean World lay still, but the world around it was in motion. Public outrage gave way to pressure. Lawmakers reopened dormant legislation. Investigations expanded. Media outlets stopped calling Ragnar a killer whale and started asking harder questions. What had we missed? And why Ocean World, battered by protests and falling attendance, made a rare move. They suspended all in-water performances with orcas. New safety protocols were drafted. Trainers were restricted to dry stage contact only. But the change came too late for Clara, and it did little to quiet the storm. Ragnar remained in quarantine, his fate undecided. Behaviorists monitored him daily. Some said he was calmer now. Others said he was simply numb. In one report, a vet wrote, "He circles," and perhaps he was. Ragnar was no longer just a whale in a tank. He was a living consequence. A reminder that beneath every choreographed routine was a wild animal navigating a world that never belonged to him. He became both evidence and warning. Not evil, not innocent, just impossible to ignore. Clara's family, still deep in grief, refused to let her death fade into a headline. 6 months later, they founded the Clara Whitmore Foundation, dedicated to marine mammal safety. At a candlelight vigil beside the tank, trainers stood in silence. Some cried. Others stared into the water where Ragnar drifted just beneath the surface, his massive form gliding in slow, uncertain arcs. He didn't rise. He didn't breach. He simply lingered, as if listening. And in that stillness, there was no applause. No. Clara Whitmore's story did not end the moment Ragnar let go. It reverberated through headlines, protests, policy shifts, and quiet moments of reckoning across the world. Her death peeled back the curtain on an industry built on illusion, exposing a fragile trust that was never meant to bear the weight of captivity. Ragnar did not speak. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any splash. In him, we saw the reflection of our own choices, our desire to control the wild, to mold it into entertainment, no matter the cost. But from the silence, something stirred. Conversations began. Laws shifted. And maybe for the first time, people started to ask the right questions. Not just about safety, but about morality, about coexistence, about respect. Clara believed in the bond between human and animal. She gave her life to it. And though that bond was broken, it sparked something bigger than applause. It sparked change. So if her story moved you, don't let it fade. Speak for the voiceless. Question the spectacle. And remember,